You're listening to the Black to Business Podcast, an educational podcast providing Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses. We chat with vetted Black entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and business owners as they provide tips and resources to help take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Monique T. Marshall. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Black to Business Podcast. It is your host, Monique T. Marshall, and today on the podcast, I'm going to talk about something that we all face sooner or later, and that is how to stay consistent even when motivation fades. Now, I know I've talked about the power of consistency quite a few times on the podcast, especially when it comes to building and growing your business, but today I wanted to go a little bit deeper, and this episode is really about what do you do when the motivation just isn't there? When you're in the trenches and every task just feels like you're dragging yourself through it. And trust me, I get it because we all start off strong. We're full of energy. We got that excitement and that drive to make things happen. But then life hits us with those unexpected twists and suddenly that motivation starts to fade. And the first thing I want to let you know that it is totally normal. But how do you keep going when the excitement just isn't there? How do you actually push through? And if you're an OG listener, you already know I like to keep it real, and I actually also like to break it down. So that's exactly what I'm going to do for you today. I'm going to talk about some real strategies that you can actually use to keep pushing through when that drive just isn't there, when things are fading, and when things are just seeming tough and you don't have it in you. So, how do you stay consistent when the motivation is nowhere to be found? Let's get into it. So first, I want to talk about something that I think we all can relate to, and that's those moments when the motivation that fueled us at the start begins to fizzle out. And I'm sure you've been there, when that excitement fades, the work begins to feel routine, and showing up every day gets tough. But here's the truth. Motivation might get you started, but it is consistency that gets you to that finish line. So how do you keep going when the excitement just isn't there anymore, when that spark isn't there? First off, I want to acknowledge this. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and it goes. You'll have those days where you are ready to conquer the world, you got it all in you, and then there are those other days when even the small tasks can feel like you're pulling teeth. But that's okay. Motivation doesn't actually need to be present in order for you to be productive. What really builds that long-term success is consistency. So showing up for yourself and your business even when you don't feel like it. And I want you to think back to when you first started and launched your business. That excitement was real. You were hyped up. You were so full of ideas and you were ready to take on the world. But as time went on, maybe the thrill of the newness wore off. The daily grind set in and it got real, and suddenly the work just wasn't as glamorous as you thought it would be. And that's where consistency comes in. The difference between those who make it and those who don't isn't who's more motivated. It's actually those who keep showing up day after day despite how they actually feel. And here's the thing, you don't need to be motivated to be consistent. Trust me. It is not always motivation that's in me to get up and record a podcast or talk to somebody on the podcast. But I know the importance of being consistent and showing up. And it's actually about building those systems and habits that keep you moving forward when that motivation fades. So I want to talk about some practical ways you can create consistency in your business even when you don't feel like it. So the first thing you want to do is actually create systems that keep you moving. So systems are going to be that lifesaver when that motivation is low. So a system could be something as simple as creating a daily checklist, using a content calendar, or batching your tasks for the week. And the goal is to take the guesswork out of your day-to-day operations. So when you wake up, you shouldn't have to think, what do I do today? Instead, you just follow those systems that already are laid out for you. And this reduces that decision fatigue and helps you stay on track even when you're not particularly motivated. So me, for example, a lot of times during the week I've shared on the podcast is most of the time I love to cook breakfast every day. However, most of those days throughout the week, I'm eating the exact same thing. I'm probably wearing the same outfits or something that is alike because I don't want to consistently be making decisions. And it's so funny because recently I was on the phone with my brother and my niece, And the first thing he asked me on FaceTime was, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Why are you asking that?" And he's like, "Every time I see you, you almost always are wearing that same shirt. And it's one of my favorite shirts, and it's actually clean. But I actually have 3 of the same similar shirts. So, again, I don't like to make many decisions throughout the week. So try setting up recurring morning routines or using a project management tool to lay out your tasks for the week. And that way you can focus on setting those things and getting them done rather than figuring out what to do next. And secondly, you want to focus on those small wins. So I talk about this all the time. When that motivation is low, looking at that big picture can be overwhelming. And you start thinking about all the things you need to do, and suddenly it feels like this is too much. And instead of focusing on everything, break it down. So focus on the small, manageable tasks that you can knock out today. And those small wins are what build that momentum and help you stay consistent even when you don't feel like tackling the larger goals. And at the start of your day, I would say a practical tip could be identify 2 to 3 small tasks that you can complete and then celebrate the win of those small tasks. And it could be something like answering emails or organizing your workspace. And these little actions are going to help you feel productive, and that feeling will build up as the day goes on. Now that we've discussed how important consistency is, even when motivation is not there, let's dive into something that also plays an equally crucial role, and that is your mindset. And specifically, how we sometimes trap ourselves in negative stories when things aren't going our way. And let's be real, we have all been there. You put in that work, followed by all the steps, and yet you're just not seeing the results you thought would come by now. It's honestly a frustrating place to be. The excitement that you had when you first started might have faded, and now those doubts are starting to creep in. You're thinking, is this even going to work? Am I cut out for this? But here's the hard truth, and I really want to keep this real, and I really want this to sink in. The only way that this won't work is if you quit. That is it, and that is all. So the stories that you tell yourself when things don't go according to plan, they're just stories. They don't define you, and they certainly don't define the potential of your business. And the road to entrepreneurship, if you already don't know, is full of these unexpected twists and turns. And honestly, things are rarely going to go exactly as we've planned. And you know what? That's perfectly okay. So one of the most important shifts you can make is recognizing that your worth is not tied to how things are going in your business. You are not your business. If something doesn't go exactly how you plan, that doesn't mean you're not worthy of success. It just means that you are experiencing part of the journey, because that's what it is, a journey. And so when those negative stories start playing in your head, I want you to pause, stop for a moment and ask yourself, is this really true, or am I just frustrated right now? And too often we let one setback or one bad day spiral into those big thoughts of failure. But more often than not, it's just a moment. It's temporary. So challenge those thoughts. And I've had times where things didn't work out the way I wanted. And I'll admit, I felt bummed. I was disappointed. But I look back and I realized that a lot of those moments happened because something better was on the way, or simply the timing wasn't right. And I had to remind myself that setbacks aren't the end. They're usually redirections or actually learning opportunities. And I was on someone's live the other day, and one of the things they were sharing, they've had huge success, and some of that success, they've been in business for over 15 years. And a lot of that success that they had came within the past 6 or 7 years, probably even 5 years. And one of the things that I love that they said was, I may have slowed down, but I never stopped. So instead of seeing setback as a failure, I want you to start viewing it as redirection. What is this moment trying to teach you? What opportunity might come from this? And sometimes when things fall through, it's because something bigger or better is waiting around the corner. And you got to trust that everything is happening for your growth, even when you can't see it yet. And another thing to remember is, as I mentioned before, you're not your business. Just because things aren't going the way you hope they would, it doesn't mean that you're failing as a person. You've got to start to separate your identity from your business outcomes, because one project, one bad week, or one lunch that didn't hit your goal doesn't define your worth as an entrepreneur or as a person. And this is part of the reason why I always stress the importance of staying in the game. So when things don't go as planned, it's easy to internalize it and feel like you're not doing enough, or worse, that you are not enough. But listen, just because things are tough right now doesn't mean they're going to stay that way. And you're growing, you're learning, and you're evolving with every challenge that you face. And I always say, like, sometimes you have to go through things for yourself in order to learn from that experience. A lot of times people can tell you don't do this or don't do that. And oftentimes you don't learn till you go through those things. So this is your journey. Now let's talk about another piece of this journey that often goes overlooked, but it's just as important. And that is keeping yourself accountable and staying connected to your goals, even when this road gets tough. So by reframing your mindset and recognizing the temporary nature of setbacks, you're not just setting yourself up to push through the tough times. You're also training yourself to handle them with grace, agility, and purpose. So keep going, because you've already done so much. And trust me, you're exactly where you are supposed to be. So let's jump into the next session on accountability, because this one has been so important for me, and I think it will be for you too, especially when that motivation and just isn't there. So we talked about mindset and consistency, but let's be real. Sometimes even when you got the best intentions, it's hard to stay on track alone. And this is where accountability comes in. And I can't stress this enough, how important it is to have someone or a group of people who can help you stay accountable and push you when your drive goes away, or starts to wane rather. And I'll share a little bit of my own journey here, because I've been a part of some accountability groups, and I've also had just one solid accountability partner. And what I've learned is that it's not about the quantity of people in your corner, but the quality. So you need to find people who are on similar paths, and they might not necessarily be in the same industry as you, but their goals should align with yours, or at the very least, they should be pushing towards something ambitious like you are. So for example, I've had accountability partners where we've checked in multiple times a week and early mornings, because we were both working best in the early mornings. And those regular check-ins not only helped us stay productive, but also reminded us that we weren't alone in this journey. And I know for me, there were days when I didn't feel like doing the work, but having someone to ask, hey, did you get the task done, was the push I needed in that moment. So having someone beside you who understands this grind, it is really what's going to make all the difference, because it creates this sense of commitment, not just for yourself, but to them as well. So you're less likely to drop the ball when someone's expecting you to show up and do the work. Plus, they can offer perspective on your struggles and celebrate your wins with you, which is as equally as important. And here's what I recommend is finding an accountability partner, a mentor, or a group that you can check in with regularly. It doesn't have to be overly formal, but consistency in checking in is going to be key. So maybe it's weekly, bi-weekly, or even just monthly check-ins. I have those as well. The idea is to have someone who will not only hold you accountable, but also keep you motivated and on track when you're feeling low on energy or inspiration. Now, if you're wondering, how do you find someone? Think about the people you're already connected to. They may not be in the exact same industry, but they're likely grinding just like you. They got these big dreams and they're pushing through the same ups and downs that you might be going through. And it could be a friend, it could be a colleague, or even someone you meet online through entrepreneurial groups. I've met accountability partners in co-working spaces, in accelerators, like just random places, but I was like, we're all in this same group. There must be some alignment there. And here's another tip. Be clear about what you need from them and what you're offering in return. So for instance, if you're looking for a partner to check in with daily or weekly, you want to let them know that. Having a clear expectation from the start will help you make the progress smoother and more effective. And so now that we've talked about accountability, let's tackle something that all of us also have to deal with, but don't always know how to handle. And that's those setbacks, because let's be honest, no matter how strong your mindset is or how great your accountability system is, things will go sideways from time to time. And I know firsthand how frustrating this is. I'm like, I love things to be on track and on point, but oftentimes you can't control everything. But here's the thing. How you respond to those setbacks is what really counts. So we have all been here. You put in the time, the energy, and the resources, and you're excited to see those results. But sometimes it doesn't just go the way you envision. Maybe the launch didn't generate the sales you expected it to, or a project hit a roadblock. When those moments happen, it's easy to feel defeated and start questioning everything, your ability, your strategy, even whether or not you are cut out for this entrepreneurial journey. But let me tell you this, setbacks are not a sign that you are failing. They're part of the process. So here's the truth. We all need to internalize. Setbacks do not define your work. They do not mean you're not good enough or your vision isn't valuable. In fact, setbacks are often best teachers. They force you to slow down, assess what's working and what isn't, and make adjustments. So sometimes they even redirect you to something better than you originally planned. And I can't tell you how many times things have not gone my way in business. At first, I'd be bummed. And then I began to question everything, whether I was even doing the right thing. But here's what I realized. Often those setbacks were just redirections. They made me rethink my approach, and in most cases, a better opportunity came along because I didn't quit. I just said this aloud the other day. I was like, I'm so glad I didn't quit. It wasn't about timing or readiness, but all about being agile enough to pivot when needed. So, how do you push through these setbacks? You stay in the game. You don't let one bad moment or one bad result make you throw in the towel. So remember, the only way to truly fail is if you quit. You've got to stay nimble and adapt to the unexpected twists and turns that are inevitable on this journey. So when things don't go as planned, instead of beating yourself up, reframe this situation. So ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What adjustment can I make to move forward? And sometimes a setback is just the universe's way of telling you to tweak your strategy or approach. It's not a hard stop. It's a pause, a chance to rethink and redirect. And another tip I would give you is to separate your self-worth from your business outcome. So just because something didn't go as planned doesn't mean you failed as a person. I mentioned this before, but I want to make it plain. There's a distinction between your personal value and your business performance. So it's critical to remember that you are not your business. Your value isn't determined by a launch or a sale. You deserve success, and setbacks don't take that away from you. Got it? So now that we talked about accountability and how to keep you on track, let's get into something that's also going to be critical for the long haul, and that is building the resilience. So this one is all about bouncing back when those things don't go as planned. So we've all had those moments, as I mentioned, setbacks where things just didn't go our way. Maybe a launch didn't hit the numbers, or maybe the deal fell through. So whatever it was, setbacks are going to be inevitable, but they don't have to derail you. So building resilience means having the mental and emotional tools to keep moving forward, even when things go sideways. So let's keep it real. Entrepreneurship is a roller coaster. It's full of ups and downs and highs and lows. And if you let every low point knock you off track, it's going to be tough to stay the course. So what I've learned over the years is that the ability to keep going, to bounce back, is what separates those who succeed from those who quit. So the key here is reframing setbacks not as failures, but as stepping stones. Each setback teaches you something valuable, whether it's about your business model, your customers, or even about yourself. The faster you can learn to adapt and adjust your approach, the faster you'll get back on track. So a practical tip I would say for this is take the time to reflect on your setbacks. Ask yourself, what is it teaching me again? What can I take away from this? And instead of seeing it as something negative, look at how it helped you grow. And remember, resilience isn't just about never feeling disappointed. It's about how you rise after those disappointments. Because in this journey, there are going to be moments where you feel like giving up. But I want to remind you to remind yourself that every challenge is an opportunity for growth. So building that resilience will keep you in the game for the long haul. This was another short and sweet episode, but I want to leave you with this. You have to stay in the game, even when it gets hard, even when you don't feel motivated. Success is not something that happens overnight, and sometimes it even doesn't happen on the timeline that you expected. But the only way it doesn't happen is if you quit. So trust the process, stay consistent, and remember, setbacks are going to be a part of the journey. You deserve success, and you are capable of achieving it, but you have to keep going. Every small step forward is progress, even if you can't see the results yet. So stay the course. And I want to thank you so much for being a part of the Black to Business family and for listening to the Black to Business podcast. If you are loving these short and sweet episodes and this episode resonated with you, tag us on Instagram and let us know. You can tag us at Black to Business and let me know what you think. And I love to hear from you. With that being said, it has been a pleasure, and I will see you back here, same time, same place next week.